Welcome to Daniel Reads Reddit. For your listening pleasure. Enjoy. See you later. Subscribe or I'll share your internet history. Serious teachers of Reddit, when have you met the parents of a student and suddenly understood their behavior? Small kid in grade 4, 9 years old, threatened another kid on the playground with a jackknife and said I'm gonna kill you. Called in his mother who was quite appalled and then warned us about his father. Exactly as she said, the man was unhinged. Within a few minutes he was raging angry and threatening the administrators. He was escorted off campus. Later he threatened to come back and the campus was locked down for the only time I remember in its history and police were alerted. That poor kid has no chance of growing up normal. His dad is a bomb with an extremely short fuse. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree is so very true. I'm sorry, how the fuck was there not a court order keeping him away from that verifiably dangerous man? I think the mother had one for herself, but trying to get one for a child in Canada is very difficult. Even murderers can get visitation rights here. It's insanity sometimes. There's a movie that I think is called Dear Zachary that shows the story of a child called Zachary and why Canada needs to stiffen up on who can and cannot be in contact with their children, much less whom custody is awarded to. It was a documentary with real video footage and it was horrifying. ESL teacher here, you'd be surprised by how much the way you talk influence your kids. I haven't had any particular horror story, but I've heard plenty of students that talked very slowly, or very loud, or very softly, or with arrogance, etc. Each and every time I've met their parents, I've noticed their voices exactly the same. Worst part is a lot of them weren't aware of this and said their children had a problem with the way they talk and I should help them with that. Parenting life pro tip. Kids are like sponges. They absorb everything they see the older people around them do, especially their parents. Act like you want them to act. My sibling and I look completely different, but our voices are the exact same, and we say the same phrases despite not being very close. My brother's girlfriend was playing Mario Kart with us and pointed out that my brother and I use the same exact expletive, usually, fuck my ass, when we are frustrated. My friends who are 3 brothers all do the same thing when they are excited. They start rubbing their hands really fast for about a second. Also, my mom and my mom's sister, when they met, my mom's sister had a southern accent, but within a minute, my mom's sister started to speak with the same Boston accent my mom has. My younger brother and I both shift our weight from one foot to another when otherwise standing still, so it looks like we are swaying. My 6th grade teacher noticed it when she had him in her class 3 years later. This happens frequently. The most common are those students whose parents are terribly overprotective and defensive. These students are overwhelmingly likely to be either arrogant lazy types used to being bailed out, or anxious quiet things terrified of disappointing their parents. But one parent in particular sticks in my mind. He was a really soft-spoken, kind chap, and totally blind from birth. His daughter walked him up to my desk where we talked for ages. He was appreciative of my time and feedback about his child, and spoke very fondly of her. Then gently led him away to the next appointment, chatting away together. It made sense, because this student was simply delightful in class, enthusiastic, kind and deeply empathetic towards others. She had time for everyone. I couldn't help thinking I'd just seen a fantastic relationship between a parent and child that had just been productive in every way. It cheered me up no end. This reminds me of the story one teacher told about a younger kid who would occasionally make random noise in class. Then they found out that the child's mom was a blind single mother and the kid just naturally had picked up the habit of making noise when occupied/playing so that their mother would know exactly where they were and was safe. Heart-meltingly wholesome. I'm not blind, but when I can't see my 3-year-old I make a particular goofy noise. We started this before he was 2 to make sure he is still where I think he is. If he hears me, he responds with the same goofy noise. My husband said it reminds him of dolphins making echolocation noises. Not blind, but when I moved in with my friend, his mom adopted me since I have no family. At night when she'd walk by and the door was open she'd make kissy noises. My friend replied back with kissy noises. Then I started to make the kissy noise. Now I'm married with my own house full of kids and we all make kissy noises from the other room. Or when I walk by my kid's room. Or this is the sweetest. Your mom's heart have melted the first time you did so. I had this student who was so down on himself. His intuition for math was great, and he would understand everything in class, but then there was no follow through, no effort on homework or anything. At parent-teacher conferences he had almost failed my class, but I let him do MACUP work and he just barely made it. I spoke to him in front of his father and I said, I think he can do better than this. The father looked at him and said, I don't think he can. I think this is your best. I'm not supposed to contradict parents, but I said, I think he will prove you wrong. I realized his father constantly shits on him, so he has no motivation. Kid ended up getting expelled shortly after for something unrelated. This was my stepdad my whole life. I was a straight A student until one day he said, so what, you're still not going to be worth anything later in life. Thanks Brian. You're still a cunt, only now you're a single cunt. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Didn't deserve it, but I appreciate it all the same. Edit 2. Thanks for all your guys' support and the second set of gold and silver. I didn't expect this to be as well received as it was. Love you. I'm on a parenting sub and there was a question a little while ago from a mom who wanted to know if she should hold her 8th grader back another year. He was a honor student, but they were considering sending him to the private school for another year of 8th grade, so he had a better chance of starting during his freshman year of high school. I live in the South, and one of my kids is an athlete, so I have seen my share of crazy sports parents, but that's a pretty clear message, that academics aren't as important as sports. My kid is small for his age and would benefit from another year before high school, but he is a straight A student and grades are way more important than any potential for an athletic career. One of my son's coaches starts off each season by telling them that they are students before they are athletes, and any bad reports from teachers will result in them being benched regardless of how good they are. He followed through too, even if it cost them some games. Parents chase the low chance of their child being a professional athlete. Even if they beat the odds and make it, what are they going to do for the rest of their life? The overwhelming majority of student athletes will spend more years out of sports than in sports. College athletes have a less than 1% chance of going pro. People don't realize how little chance their kids have of a pro career. And high school athletes have roughly the same odds of going D1, if I remember correctly. It's such a stupid thing to go all in on, especially considering you could have the best work ethic imaginable, but still be a couple inches too short to excel. Not to mention injuries. A good friend of mine got a full ride to a Big Ten school as an offensive lineman. His senior year of high school he was already having problems with his knees. He was already a big guy, like 6 feet 2 inches, and about 275 pounds in high school. Put the repeated impacts from playing, and his knees were trashed. His first year of college they were already giving him injections, so he could keep playing. During his second season he totally blew out his right knee and couldn't play anymore. Had to take the rest of the year off school to recover, and then couldn't afford to finish his degree. He wound up working as a security guard in a high-end apartment building. All it takes is an injury and you can lose everything you worked your whole life for. Academics need to be put before sports, and if colleges are going to treat student athletes as non-professional then they need to make sure these kids graduate. I had a student who was a low-level rebel. I taught an elective, but I'm sure he was put in my class because it seemed low effort at the time. He was sulky, had issues with authority, didn't turn in his homework, etc. I dealt with him the same way that I deal with all my kids, and we slowly started to develop some fragile rapport. At parent/teacher conferences, his mom brought him along. He looked trapped and defensive, and she looked irritated. By that point in the year, he was passing my class, so I started off by reviewing his grades and the events that were coming up in my class. She interrupted me near the end to say, yeah, but what is his behavior in class like? How badly is he behaving for you? Poor kid slides lower in his chair, and I can tell that his mom brought him along as an exercise in shaming her kid. I didn't feel like playing that game, so I brightly laid out every possible positive interaction I had with him during the year, the conversations he had with me about career aspirations, the times he showed up on time to class, whatever I could throw at her. She left still looking irritated, but her kid left looking a little better. Sure, there were things I wished he would improve on, but that's a conversation for me and him to work out, not something to pile on in an evening of lectures from other teachers. Good on you, for real. Everyone has things to work on, especially when you're not even an adult. But shaming is such a horrible way to get a positive change in behavior. Source: grew up super religious. Hey, another person raised super religious here. I'm still unpacking all the psychological shit and fixing my ways of thinking.